My name is Robert Williams. I'm 28 and work in the food and beverage industry. Though I say food and beverage industry, I'm not on-site staff. I go to the office and work in sales promotion. Our department's job is to come up with plans to increase store sales and negotiate with clients who cooperate with us. I joined this company after graduating from high school and have been working in this department since I was a newcomer, now marking my 10th year. Most of my peers were college graduates, so, with my shallow knowledge and insufficient ability as a high school graduate, it was tough not to fall behind every day. But now that I'm in my 10th year, I have many individual tasks and no longer feel inferior. I think I can be trusted to work independently. I always arrive at the company 30 minutes before starting time. To start work smoothly, I check today's tasks and sort out the documents that arrived while I was away, placing them on the desks of the responsible staff members. This has become a habit or morning routine, and I can't shake it. Most people arrive about 10 minutes before starting, so I try to finish these tasks by then. Morning, Robert. Thanks as always. Wow, I didn't want to miss this document today, so thanks for giving it to me first thing. Thanks. My supervisor and colleague, Liam, call out to me like that. But since I'm just trying not to inconvenience myself, I feel a little embarrassed when they thank me. Then, my boss, Owen Smith, came to work. Owen is a supervisor 10 years my senior who transferred from another department last year. I have been in the sales promotion department longer, so we are often paired. But he is moody, changes his attitude depending on the person, and is not well liked. Hey, go make coffee. This morning, he just plumped down in his chair, looking grumpy, and said that to me. Good morning. The usual coffee is okay, right? I'll go make it. I responded lightly and went to the break room to make coffee. Robert, you really can do it without making a nasty face. He was clearly irritated by the praise for you, said Liam, who came to make coffee as well. Really, he's always like that. We talk while making coffee for ourselves and Liam. Thanks, but yesterday, after your proposal was accepted, he dumped a massive amount of miscellaneous tasks on you to finish today. The harassment is terrible. What? Was that harassment? I thought he was busy and asked me to do it. When I answered that way, Liam laughed, saying, You're really naive or something. Owen, sorry to keep you waiting. Yeah, just put it there. A curt reply came back as he continued to stare at his computer screen. Seeing this, Liam sends me a wry smile, but it's just the usual Owen, so it doesn't matter to me. But it's best to leave him alone on an apparent bad day. I started my work without concern. Even so, when Owen transferred here, he was not as unapproachable, saying, I don't know much about the promotion department's work, so please help me. But one day, after being called by the supervisor, who looked pleased, and being told, this document you summarized the other day was really good. It's easy to see and understand when you make it, so the big bosses were saying they might ask you to do it next time too. You've raised your evaluation again, and receiving a small round of applause from nearby colleagues. I've been asked to prepare materials for the next meeting that the bigwigs will be attending. Ever since the time when I started being praised and rallied on by the supervisor, Owen's attitude towards me became more aggressive. Until just a moment ago, he was smiling and fawning over the executives, but as soon as they were gone, he would look at me, furrow his brow, and dump work on me, saying, I'll give you this little job. Oh, put my name on it, or why are you the only one getting praised? You don't have much of a head on your shoulders, even directly expressing his disdain. It's clear that he doesn't feel good about me if we're working together. Though it's not like let sleeping dogs lie, we are often paired, so all I can do is go with the flow and get along with him. As for work, I'm enjoying it every day, except for having a troublesome boss. The crowded train to and from work is a bit tiring, but it's unavoidable in the city. Then, one evening after work, I was standing near the door on a crowded train. A black-haired woman was standing diagonally in front of me. It was clear that she wasn't American. What country is she from? What a beautiful hair color. I was thinking about that and standing blankly when I noticed that she was swaying in a way different from the train's shaking. She was pressing the temple area with her left hand and looking down, but her face was pale when she looked up slightly. Is she okay? I worried and glanced over. clearly noticing that her complexion was getting worse. "Are you all right?" When I asked, she nodded slightly, but she looked like she might collapse at any moment. "Excuse me for a moment." I asked the person next to her to switch places, telling her, "Hold on if you need to. Let's get off at the next station." The person is a woman, so I'm worried about offending her, but before I know it, I've taken action. When we arrived at the station, I supported the woman as we got off the train. She really looked like she was struggling to stand. She was weak, but to keep from falling, she clung tightly to me as we walked to a bench. Kind strangers called for a station attendant, offered a bottle of water, and even draped a jacket over the woman. A station attendant who heard the commotion came over to the woman, saying, "Let's go to the medical room. Can you walk? I'll support you," I said to the woman. But watching her reaction, I suddenly realized something. Does she understand me? Thinking this, I ask in English, "Do you understand me? Do you speak English?" "I speak a little English," she replies immediately in English. "Let's go to the medical room together." When I said this in English, she got up, holding on to me. Just then, another station attendant arrived with a wheelchair, and we headed to the medical room together. But once she laid down on the bed, her face was still pale, her hands were cold, and she seemed to be getting worse. The station attendant suggested calling an ambulance. I spoke to the anxious woman. "I can interpret. Shall we go together?" When I asked, she said, "Thank you, please. I just arrived in America and don't understand the language yet." Gripping my hand, an ambulance arrived quickly, and I went to the hospital to interpret. Fortunately, it seemed that stress and anemia were the cause, and she recovered after receiving an 4 drip and was allowed to go home. "Thank you so much. I was really saved thanks to you." Her name is Amelia. Seeing her smile, I felt relieved. "No problem. I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad I could help you. By the way, Amelia, I thought you might be from Europe based on your accent." "Where are you from?" "Germany." I burst into laughter when I hear that Amelia is from Germany. "Oh, I'm sorry for laughing. I should have asked you right away. Your language would have been easier to understand." When I reply in German, Amelia exclaims, "Wow, you understand German." I'm shocked, and laughs. "Oh, by the way, Amelia, I'll take you home since I'm worried. Let's take a taxi together." "Thank you so much. I'll take you up on that." And I decide to take her home. In the car, we introduced ourselves briefly and exchanged business cards. "I was really saved because you were there. Let me thank you properly next time." I declined at first, but she insisted, so we made plans for a meal. During the conversation, we both stared at the business cards at the same time, and Amelia spoke first. "You work in the food and beverage industry." "Wait, Amelia, your company is that major one." We talked about each other's companies, and by the time we arrived at Amelia's apartment building, the conversation deepened. "Let's talk more over dinner. I'll get in touch once I find a free day." "Sure. See you next time then." With those words, we parted for the day, and I headed home. Days later, Amelia and I had dinner, and the conversation naturally turned to work. The more we talk, the deeper the conversation gets. The reason it gets so deep into work is that Amelia works to spread German beer in America, and I work in the food and beverage industry. I had no choice but to jump on. I've expressed all my thoughts. I really want to do business with your company. What do you think? Of course, I was not able to decide this on my own, but the more we talked, the more ideas came to mind, and I believe that if we team up, it will be beneficial for both sides. I told Amelia that I would take it back to the company and respond. The next day, I reported my conversation with Amelia to my supervisor. I briefly explained how I met Amelia, and then explained the subject of German beer. My supervisor seemed very impressed and said, "Sounds good, Robert. Give it a try." I conveyed this to Amelia and further discussed it, prepared documents, and submitted them. Soon, instructions came from the higher-ups to proceed. As it was a rather big deal, the company united to ensure the deal was successful, and a project team was formed. Since I had been advancing the discussion with Amelia, I was appointed as the team leader. This was my first time leading such a large deal, but with the support of my boss and colleagues, I began the exchange with Amelia. However, something unexpected happened midway. In the midst of the company's excitement over this large deal, there was only one person who was dissatisfied. It was my boss, Owen. How far have you come? Are you really up to this? You can't handle such a big deal with just a high school diploma. Let me, a graduate from a national university, take over. I'll take over as leader. Give it to me. He said that, took the documents from my hand, and went straight to the supervisor to negotiate. Supervisor and Owen spent quite some time talking in another room. When the supervisor returned to the department, he seemed a bit worn out. I'll take care of it, so be prepared, Owen told me cheerfully, and then headed off to negotiate with Amelia's company. I'm really sorry, Robert. It was your project after all. Thank you for bringing it this far. He patted me on the shoulder and went to tell the project team that I had been removed. I never expected to be not only demoted from leader but also removed from the team. Apparently, the supervisor had no choice but to remove me, as I was the only one who could take over Owen's current job. But in essence, he was talked into it by Owen. Although it was frustrating, I told myself that my abilities were still not enough and focused on my newly assigned work. Then I heard a story from my colleague, Jack, who was on the project team. Owen's taking over my work from me was not only because he disliked me but also because he had ulterior motives. Come to think of it, Owen loved women from abroad. I have heard that he always went to pubs and bars where women from abroad worked for a drink after work. It's none of my business that Owen is single, but since the leader on the other side of this big deal was a German woman named Amelia, he seemed to have faint hopes of turning their acquaintance into a romantic relationship. Recently, Jack was invited to drink by Owen, and that's what he heard from him. I was dumbfounded by the unexpected reason. Surely he was getting carried away since it's rare to negotiate with people from abroad. However, I thought that as long as the negotiations were successful, that would be fine. I wonder if they've reached the final stage, since it's been a while since the change in leadership. I had to handle Owen's share of work as well, so my mind was away from the large deal, but I was curious. Just then, Jack happened to walk by, scratching his head. Hey Jack, how's that project going? Is it almost settled? Expecting a positive response, I called out cheerfully, but he replied with a rather grim face and a soft voice, well, about that. Apparently, the conversation was not progressing very well. There were problems with the negotiation documents and interpretation, as well as Owen's German level. The documents I have prepared were written in German for Amelia to understand, and only the important parts were translated into English for our members to understand. Since all the documents that Owen and the team had seen in the beginning were translated by me into English, Owen seemed to have been troubled when he started as a leader and all the new documents were in German. Of course, there was an interpreter for Amelia from the beginning, but the conversation during the negotiations was conducted almost entirely in English. The interpreter was translating German into English for Owen. The difficult part that didn't get through were translated into English, but the process of translating along the way was taking too much time. Because of that, things that should have been settled were not, and both Amelia and our higher-ups, who knew the progress, were in a heavy mood. While I was working at my desk, Liam came running over to me, looking flustered. Robert, emergency. Come to the conference room immediately, please. When I asked what had happened, I found out that Amelia was about to throw in the towel. It seems Amelia was worn out from negotiating while translating. I've had enough of this hassle. Please, call Robert. I trust him more than you. When Robert was here, everything went smoothly. Why has he been left out? Amelia seemed so dissatisfied that she was about to walk out. I hurried to the conference room, entered the room, and said, "Excuse me." Then, Amelia's face lit up, though she was angrily speaking German to Owen. Robert, I've been waiting. I really can't move this conversation forward. What's going on? Is he really your leader? He's totally useless. I apologize for my boss, but Amelia, calling him useless is a bit too much. Amelia happily spoke to me in German. I replied in German, and we both chuckled, unsure if it was a joke or serious. Owen and my colleagues were staring with their mouths open. It's natural since they don't understand German, but more importantly, Amelia's mood seemed to have improved now that I, who can speak German, was there. With Robert here, everything will be fine. Let's move on. Robert will be handling this, right? The interpreter translated Amelia's German words to Owen. Owen bit his lip with a bitter face and said only, "Robert, please," and moved to the seat behind him. Afterward, with me leading the conversation, we quickly reached the final stage. The next time we meet, the deal will surely be sealed. Before I knew it, my manager and other bosses had gathered in the conference room. I was thanked by my colleagues and manager, but then Jack asked, "But why do you speak German so fluently?" The truth is, I've been exposed to German since childhood. My father worked at the German branch office after being transferred to Germany. Now he's back here, but visiting Germany during summer and winter breaks has become a tradition. I naturally became interested in German, able to speak simple phrases. Growing up close to Germany, I wanted to study more, so I went to an international high school with a German language department. I considered moving to Germany after college, but even though my father worked abroad, we weren't a wealthy family. Thinking about the expenses for my siblings, I decided to support myself and, against my parents' wishes, gave up on college and chose to work. Everyone seemed to understand when I explained that, really, having Robert was a lifesaver. "Thank you." I was thanked again, but my manager turned to Owen, who was looking down at the back. "Owen, how were you going to move the conversation forward without understanding German?" The manager seemed somewhat baffled. "Well, I heard there was an interpreter." Owen mumbled, "The client only speaks German. Tell us in advance. We didn't even know the documents were all in German." Owen's anger turned to me. "I told you she was German, so I thought you'd understand." Someone chuckled at that. Upon hearing that, Owen clicked his tongue and left the room, looking frustrated. A few months later, the collaboration between German beer and the restaurant was a huge success. The response was greater than expected, and both Amelia's company and ours made substantial sales. In celebration, today Amelia and I are dining at a fancy restaurant. We were truly meant to meet. Who would have thought it would lead to this from a chance encounter on a train? We laughed and sipped our wine. We've actually been dating for a while now. After she confessed her feelings to me, I was surprised but had feelings for her too, so we started dating. On the way home from this date, we bumped into Owen, Robert, and Amelia. "What are you two?" Seeing Amelia's arm entwined with mine, Owen was speechless. We're dating now." I was a bit embarrassed, but there was no use hiding it. After reporting this, Owen let out a scream of astonishment. The next day, I found out why Owen had made that noise. "Why are you next to Amelia? It should have been me." He came to me first thing in the morning and said that, looking frustrated. After closing a business deal, though he felt embarrassed about giving up midway, Owen, who had fallen head over heels for Amelia, went the extra mile to look up some German phrases, and it seems he confessed to her, albeit in broken German. However, it seems he was turned down by Amelia. He even declared he was done with his favorite bar and even was preparing to attend German language classes. Owen, who had spectacularly crashed and burned, seems to have returned to being a regular at the bar. Not knowing any of this, I felt a bit guilty, but Owen has stopped being as snarky as before since his defeat. The work environment in our department has improved, and my internal evaluation within the company is on the rise, thanks to that major project. My personal life is fulfilling as well, and I am living happy days.